Childhood, the stuff of nightmares for some people I know. I grew up in a place where shouting parents, angry teachers, piles of homework and the cane were all commonplace. Coming from Malaysia to Australia was like a breath of fresh air. Children and their opinions were respected and encouraged. There was a stronger emphasis on rewarding good behaviour rather than punishing the bad. I decided to speak to various people in the field to inquire as to their thoughts on child raising. Is there a perfect method for raising a child? While encouragement and awards are good, could excessive use of the carrot without the stick be detrimental to a child's development? To investigate child raising practices in Australia, I visit Playdays Wahroonga, where my sister Rachel works. Rachel tells me about her initial cultural shock when she found herself answerable to children as young as 2 or 3.
With the children, you need to explain what you're about to do, because they like to say, why are we doing that? Like, you need to say, because you might get burnt from the sun, you need to wear your hat, or you need to be quiet because the toddlers are sleeping.
Oscar, look, you can't go out because there's no more teachers outside. And if you hurt yourself, the teachers won't know, and that wouldn't be very good, would it?
So they need to have a reason to understand why they should be doing that.
Not only were children here given reasons for decisions, but adults were actively encouraged to come down to the level of the children.
My philosophy is you need to sit down and show a child how to play as well too, how to engage in play. I always encourage the children with positive behaviour, role model positive behaviour as well too, encourage the parents to role model positive behaviour and also teach them respect. Some of the parents have got strict guidelines at home, they've got their limits and their boundaries, and then you can see those children because they won't push your limits and boundaries. And then you've got children that have no limits or boundaries at home and it's free for all, one for here, two for there, and off they go.
To get a professional opinion, I interviewed Dr. Kem Wong, a child, adolescent and family psychiatrist.
The Asian style tend to be a lot more authoritarian, whereas the Western style or the Australian style tend to be a lot more authoritative. I think a lot of Asian parents tend to look at their kids as an extension of themselves.
Are you sure that's the right answer?
Yes.
Wrong. Do it again.
So when you look at the child as an extension of yourself, then whatever you think is right, then is right. Whatever you think should be done, then should be done.
Come on, you are so dumb. That is the wrong answer. You're so dumb. You're never gonna be like your brother. Never, ever.
Whereas if you look at your child as a separate person, then obviously you kind of like would come to the conclusion that this separate person then would have his or her own opinion and his or her own preferences. So because of that, the authoritative sort of parenting style where the child is recognized as a separate person tends to bring up kids who are a lot more confident.
Confidence is good, but I'm also interested to know how children in Australia are disciplined. Shifa, one of Rachel's colleagues, tells me that they employ a specific method for dealing with misbehaviour at the childcare centre.
It's redirecting. We cannot work on the concepts of no and don't. So we have to give them a reason. Like that's the teaching. Like you can't just say, no, you can't do that, or don't do that. It's like, instead of don't do that, it's like, how about you stop doing that and you come over here and you do this, and you redirect them to something else. And when you have finished your craft, then you can come and swap with someone, okay?
It's actually to offer a solution to the child. Because when you say don't stand on the chair, you're not actually offering a solution, or don't run inside. Whereas if you say running is for outside, what you're saying is that, look, this is the way to solve the problem. If you want to run, you go outside. So it is a more effective form of communication.
But then sometimes you just talk and talk and talk and talk, and it's just not going to work. Like the whole positive redirection. We even here, sometimes we have children that, like I said, you just feel like you're repeating all day to the same child.
and that child, I learn, may go through his or her whole life not having been smacked or spanked, whether in school or at home. I interview my pastor who attended a Catholic school. Like me, he has reservations about the direction Australia is heading.
My perception is, even though I grew up and saw instances of it being abused, I actually think we were much better off with what we grew up with. Obviously, you'd want to correct that abuse, but what we have today is a situation I think is far worse. In my day growing up in school, if you did something wrong, you get the strap and everybody go, right, we got the message, and you'd move on. Now you've got to constantly almost do emotional battle with people, trying to almost psychologically convince and unfortunately at times manipulate them into doing what's right. See, the thing is you get nervous even raising this, because if even in our culture, if you mention smacking, people go straight to straw man arguments. They go to caricatures. The truth is much more complicated. It's what the Bible says: we require wisdom. The Bible, and I think most parents are not saying who believe in smacking as a way of disciplining their children and raising their children. They're not saying every time you see something go wrong, oh, you must give them a smack and you must make them cry. Nobody's saying that. Or if they are, they're crazy.
And perhaps growing up, I did witness some crazy situations. But I must say, my friends and I seem to have grown up fairly well adjusted. Perhaps the issue of discipline and punishment isn't so much the method, but rather the motivation.
And I think parents should love their kids. It is only when parents do not love their kids that, kids tend to have problems.
It really comes down to what is love, doesn't it? My generation and older were brought up on this biblical truism: spare the rod and spoil the child. The God of the Bible says a similar thing. He says, I've made the world a certain way. This is the best way to live, where you'll enjoy the world I've made. I'll discipline you in love if you go the wrong way, so that you'll learn how to use my world correctly and get the most out of it. But if you continue to reject me, you know what? I'll withdraw my love and I'll no longer discipline you. That's the absence of love.
Put some soup in there. We'd have to put it in the microwave though.
Okay.